Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to a free hit 34 special of the FPL Wire. We're recording after the conclusion of all Champions League and Europa matches. I'm your host, Zophar, and I'm joined as always by my co host, Lateriser. How's it going, buddy?
Good. Interesting games that happened over the weekend, and especially yesterday. We were monitoring the minutes like a hawk. But I don't think we learned a lot because what happened was Salah played 66 minutes ish. Diaz played 66 minutes. Jota and Darwin played the remaining 30 odd minutes. Trent played a good 72 minutes, and Robbo played 18 minutes. So then that was the literal main takeaway in the Bayern game. Arsenal. Both the English clubs are now out. City and Arsenal are both out, and Kai and Saka both got 90 minutes in their system. So there are two ways to look at this, right? Like the first thing that comes to my head is that okay, our Arsenal players played 90 minutes. Do we worry about them being rested for the Wolves game before the two important games against Chelsea and Spurs? Or do we think now both these teams literally have nothing but the league to focus on? Arsenal literally have the league to focus on. So what's your first inclination there?
I think in general for the league it bodes well because you see now that there are, I think Aston Villa are the only team now that are in European competition. Great show by Emi Martinez again yesterday. Did you know about the
Yeah.
yellow card rule? About the yellow cards being reset at the start of a penalty shootout?
I
Completely
have
new to me.
I didn't know what happened. So what's
He
happened?
was
Why don't you
already
just
booked and he got another yellow during the shootout, but he didn't get sent off because there's a rule that I just found out yesterday that the yellows get reset at the start of a shootout. So
Very nice.
either way, we digress. Now, even at City, there's something interesting. Now, we don't know. We haven't had the press conference yet with Haaland possibly injured, KDB possibly injured. And if that is the case, it gives a little bit of lift to the other guys, right? At least
Yeah.
mentally, knowing that two of their best players are potentially out. But there are two ways now to look at it. There's
Just
also,
before that, like
go
I
ahead,
also think it could be just fatigue, right? Because
could be.
because it also could be see Pep lost the tag. And who did he sub off? Two of his regular penalty takers, and they lost on penalty. So this was like a post-match presser where he was asked by the journalist what happened to Haaland and KDB. They got taken off. So Pep literally quoted and said that they asked me to take them off. They couldn't continue anymore. So I don't know if it's an injury and it's just fatigue or Pep is also just citing why he had to take off his main penalty takers before the penalty shootout.
Yeah. Now, going back to Arsenal, I do think there's going to be a mental knock-on effect, right? I don't. You're always going to be disappointed after a loss, so that remains to be seen how the team will pick itself up. We are talking about very young players here, who for a lot of them this is the first time they've experienced such a big European night. So do expect some disappointment. And Wolves isn't an easy place to go to. They're given most teams a difficult game. The Chelsea also not an ideal team to play. We do
Yeah,
step up against these teams. So it's going to be very interesting. Now it's a bit of an unknown, but you'd only expect these guys having challenged for the league title for so long to up their performances.
yeah. The thing with Wolves and why they're tricky is they tend to play to the level of their opposition. They've had some good results against big teams, and also their first outside of Neto, they have three attackers that they play regularly fit for the game against Arsenal now. So, that comes into picture. What we're going to do on this episode is discuss your free hit draft, my free hit draft, what's changed in our thinking in the last 3, 4 days, and what are the spots we're absolutely sure about, and what are the spots that we're maybe thinking about.
Yeah, I
Before
think
that,
about six. I think we're 6 to 7 spots pretty much zeroed down. A lot of
yeah,
like 50-50s and plus said on the last spot, if you move one piece of the jigsaw from those 50-50s, then you end up doing a lot of other changes, your goalkeeper, etc., which has a cascading effect. So let's look to lock that down today, at
yeah.
least get some clarity on these points. But yeah, let's start off with our sponsor plug.
Before we just get into that, pledge to all our listeners and viewers to to get those likes and subscribes in. Actually, me mentioning to our listeners that we had terrible subscribers in the last 28 days. They did a good job. We got a pretty healthy amount in the last 3, 4 days. We hope that you keep this run going. We're about 410 away from our 30K target. We would love to get there before the end of the season. So why don't you help us? Zoff out here again, as you can possibly see, is not in the best of health, but he made sure that he gets onto the podcast today, and we put out some content for you.
Right, let's start. And even next week, there's a lot of content coming up. We're going to have an early wildcard thoughts with Pras on Monday, then the regular pod, and a lot more content for you guys on wildcard next week. So remember to subscribe. Now, our sponsor plug. Now, as you guys know, the FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Football Scout Network. From our inception, all the data you see on the pod is from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. They're going to have a lot of data up there for the Euros as well. So if you plan to play Euros Fantasy, follow that stuff. So it would be worth signing up now. You can sign up using the affiliate link in the description below and support the pod as well.
And as always, this episode is also sponsored by NordVPN. We've been tying them up with a plenty of number of episodes this season. And what we started doing last week was quite interesting in terms of doing a show recommendation of the week. I don't have a recommendation, but there's a show that is definitely on my watch list this weekend, which I've been hearing really good things about, and that's Fallout.
Yeah, I
Uh,
started that.
how was it?
It's interesting, a bit dystopian, a bit grim to start with, but I'm a big fan of the game. So they've actually adapted the things around the game, the art style and stuff quite well. So hopefully watch more of that this weekend.
Right, it's on Prime if I'm not mistaken, and if it's not showing in your country, you can always use NordVPN to watch the show from a country that is streaming the show. I've heard that it's one of the best adaptations of game to show that we've seen so far. And with NordVPN, you can access content outside your region, get access to a wide library on your favorite streaming services. And say you're traveling outside your country, you can always access your home library content. If you're somebody who's Indian and wants to watch the IPL outside of India, NordVPN is what you got.
Yeah.
It also has an efficient anti-malware, anti-spyware protection. It highlights any attack and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. So if you want a special deal on NordVPN, grab your exclusive deal by going to nordvpn.com/the FPL Wire. Get a huge discount on a NordVPN plan, and you get 4 months extra for free.
Fantastic. Let's jump into it now. We'll have the numbers up from Rob T over here. We didn't have this the last pod, so I'll just quickly summarize the teams that are primarily interest to us. I think this he summed them up over here. Yeah. Yes. So Arsenal are projected to score 4.6 goals along with Liverpool somewhat similar. They're also the best teams for clean sheet odds with Arsenal at 63, Liverpool at 55. Palace are close, well, not really close, 2.98 goals, but 41% chance of a clean sheet. Bournemouth, Manchester United are probably the good single game week option. We'll discuss them a little bit. Then you have Everton. What's your takeaways from this, Ella?
The clean sheet odds for Liverpool are much higher than what I'm expected. Traditionally, when you think about having more chips in attack between Arsenal and Liverpool, you'd ideally think maybe go for Liverpool because we've traditionally viewed them as the higher goal scoring team and Arsenal as the better team for clean sheets. But seeing that there is not much difference between Liverpool and Arsenal's projected goals and Arsenal and Liverpool's clean sheet odds, uh, it gives validation to the current draft that I have at the moment, which has double Arsenal attack and double Liverpool defense. The primary reason is the Liverpool schedule and that they have their five attackers fit. So that's something that jumps out to me. Good to see Bournemouth having way more goal scoring odds than Wolves, which sort of is an indication between the Solanke versus Cunha debate. Sheffield United isn't too bad either. Like when have we seen them in the top six, top seven for goal scoring odds? So that's nice from a punt point of view if you're looking at somebody like a Buckburney or Brereton Diaz.
Yeah. I think the Wolves, obviously, the Arsenal projections is what lets them down. It's only 0.83 against
Yeah,
Arsenal's 1.55 against Bournemouth. So they really expect Arsenal to keep things tight, which is fair, considering how
yeah,
good the Gunners have been defensively on the road.
yeah,
Let's just jump straight into our free hit drafts then. I think let's just discuss the dilemmas. It's easier to visualize it from there.
yeah. Let's do that.
Right. This is yours up first. Why don't you read it out for the audio?
Yeah, just going to read out my draft for the benefit of my our viewers and listeners as well. I've got Alison Becker is in as my keeper. I've got Robertson, Gabriel, and Munoz in my defense. I've got Salah. I've got Eze as my captain. I've got Havertz. I've got Saka. I've got Brereton Diaz. I've got Mateta. I've got Solanke. And on my bench, I have Gurbich. Shout out to Ivan. I've got Aitnuri. I've got Cunha, and I've got Sensi. Now I'll just take you through a few talking points and what the thinking around this draft is. If you see, one thing that's happened is on Tuesday when we did the pod, I had a second defender from Arsenal and I had Diaz in place of him. Now, the biggest thing is, Liverpool are essentially playing 3 games in 6 days. That's just a terrible schedule. And Klopp is somebody who believes in the red zone a lot. And what's happening is we just don't have access to that data. We don't know who's in the yellow zone. We don't know who's in the red zone. We don't know how he's going to rotate these minutes. When you're thinking about any of the Liverpool attackers, and that includes Mo Salah in my opinion, I think you're looking at 120 to 150 minutes. I don't think anybody is going to play 180 minutes. You're looking at 120 to 150 minutes for all of them. That's why I've gone and replaced Diaz with Saka. One thing also that I'm trying to do is correct my mistake of underplaying penalties. So you might be of the thinking that I'm back in rank, etc. So why do I get template picks in my place? But I feel like it's a habit that I want to start cultivating right now, where I don't really want to look at template to differential. I want to start getting good picks in place, and I want to start overvaluing penalties than I have done previously. So I've got Arsenal's penalty taker in there, I've got Liverpool's penalty taker in there, I've got Bournemouth's penalty taker in there, and Crystal Palace's penalty taker in there. I'm hoping that these percentages add up and I get a penalty or two over the two matches. That's also a thought in my head. One thing I am thinking about is if it looks like Gary O'Neill in his press conference tells us that Ed Nouri is fit and he's over his fitness problems. I am contemplating maybe throwing Ed Nouri in instead of Robbo because I already have one piece of the Liverpool defense and probably punt on a Jota or a Darwin. Like that's the one thing that I'm maybe thinking about if I want to play safe. Because even if it's Robbo, who looks fairly fit, it is still 3 games in 6 days for Liverpool. The secure and the best and the most secure bet has to be Van Dijk. It isn't Robbo, it isn't Trent. So that's one debate in my head, which is that Liverpool defender spot. It could be Ran, it could be Van Dijk. That's where I am. We live in a world where if I could have 4 or 5 spots for Crystal Palace, I would use them. Because West Ham haven't kept a clean sheet for dog years, and they again played a very strong side against Leverkusen. It was 1-1. So again they've always tended to underperform when they're playing after a European game because they don't have the squad to cope with the minutes. It's always that first team that's going to play. So I'm hoping Palace especially get uh, do well against West Ham because I think that's the money fixture because Newcastle's defense has improved of late. So the money fixture is the West Ham game. So those are the initial thoughts. Any questions that you want to ask me with regards to
Yes.
this?
Let's start from the back, obviously. Let's talk about the comments on Trent. I watched bits of the game yesterday. He was quite impressive. Klopp was talking about how he was running the show, but he quote unquote ran out of gas
Yeah,
towards the end, so hooked him off around 70 minutes. Now, obviously, we've spoken about the spacing in the previous pod. It's 2 days. I think it is still quite possible that given how important Trent is and how well he played, that he starts both. We probably won't get 90 in each, but I think the possibility of 65 plus in both games very much does exist.
it exists. It exists. But you're also being like, there's a 5%, 10% optimism thrown in to get Trent. And I have nothing wrong with that because this is Trent Alexander-Arnold. One free kick, he's one of the best attacking defenders in the league, and not just from a quantity output, it's from the quality output. He's a generational talent, right? So if you're somebody who wants to punt on Trent, assuming that he gets 60 plus minutes in both games, it isn't the worst assumption. It's just there's something in my head that tells me that because Trent was so close to coming back last time and then he got injured again for a substantial point of view, for a substantial period of time, I feel like his injury wasn't a small injury. And I feel like, especially when you've already had a recurrence and you're risking recurrence again, you handle such players, especially when they're of the caliber of Trent Alexander-Arnold, with a little more caution. That's the only thing that is playing a slight doubt in my head. But you've been very keen on a Trent punt, and I've not been particularly feeling it. But it's Trent; he was really good. You can go by the 60-minute 2 games assumption because it's important. And one thing also we noticed is that Liverpool kept a clean sheet against Atlanta. And that happened after a while. And Alon pointed out to me from FNFPL that this is the first time in a long time they had their first choice back five fit. Also, a pretty important factor when you're thinking about clean sheet odds in Liverpool, they have their defenders fit now. So that's something that takes up their clean sheet percentage maybe 5%, 6%.
Yeah. Although I don't think he'll play Konate in all of them. What we've seen that Konate does see some rotation with
Yeah,
Kwanzaa in there, but and also Atlanta, I wouldn't read too much into it because they were saving a result, right? It's not
yeah.
like the tie was level; they were just looking to shut up shop. So very little I think we can read into that. But double defense, what I don't like is obviously the Fulham game primarily concerns me more. I think
Yeah,
Fulham are very capable of scoring at their own patch. Everton have actually, I think, scored one of the fewest goals at home, but that's their 1-0 style.
exactly.
That's very game
Exactly.
state. That game could be a 0-0, could be a 1-0. So I think you're primarily hoping for a clean sheet in that game, but the possibility of two clean sheets seems a bit low to me.
Yeah. But it also comes also out of replacement options, right? Like the biggest competitor for the defensive spot is Arsenal. Now, Arsenal also have a tough away tie to Wolves, and then they've got Chelsea. Chelsea are perfectly capable of scoring, right? So even I think with Arsenal, one clean sheet looks likely, two clean sheet is possible because they're Arsenal, but that's the comparison. And they don't have attacking defenders like Liverpool do. Even if I'm comparing Raya to Allison, I think Allison is capable of getting more saves and more save points. And then and then there's a weightage of second attacker versus Diaz or Darwin, right? That's the
Let's talk about
comparison.
that. I think
Yeah,
let's go. I think that's really what more people are interested in now. I think Salah is more or less a lock, and let's say one Liverpool defender. Let's just
yeah,
put it in place for now. Now, obviously, the upside is there now in terms of attack, and we saw that like yesterday, Jota. The news is that he was supposed to start, but he picked up a knock in the warm
okay,
up. That's why he did not start. That's what the press reports say. We don't know how far that's true. Darwin obviously was benched, and Gakpo played the full 90. So I think the what interpretation we can take from that is I think Gakpo is possibly the least likely to
yeah,
start the next game at least. I think that would be fair.
yeah, that is.
So now assuming that Salah would start, I think that leaves us now with Jota,
And
Darwin, and
Darwin
Diaz.
and Diaz. Yeah,
So I think is it not a fair assumption to say since Darwin didn't start yesterday, there's a good chance of him starting the next two?
yeah. But my stance remains the same. 120 to 150 minutes for
Hmm.
Liverpool attack. That's the thing. When you've got all five fit, there's going to be early
Even for
subs
like you said,
and
absolutely. Even for Salah, that is likely to be the case.
yeah. So that's the takeaway that I'm trying to take. And I was it was more about my assessment of Arsenal's expected minutes when it comes to attackers because Arsenal have a brutal schedule too, right? They've had an away tie to Bayern and then they have an away tie to Wolves. And I've been talking to a few Arsenal fans. I was in the Discord yesterday chatting with all our Arsenal fans, and they do look tired. They do look tired at the moment. So, there was an interesting point of view that if they're tired, they may move towards a more control-oriented game, which ups the clean sheet odds compared to all-out attack. But one point Achu made, which was something I needed to hear. Achu from our Discord, he said that in his opinion now, Havertz is as important as Saka and Odegaard in that front six. Whether he plays as the LCM, whether he plays as the center forward, he's as important. So he's like, whatever expected minutes you're giving Odegaard and Saka, you need to give the same expected minutes to Havertz because of sheer importance to team. The thing is, Havertz has started some 10, 11 games in a row without having any rest at all. And I think both Saka and Odegaard have missed 1-1 game. So whether that yellow red zone accumulation happens is something you have to wonder. But generally, Havertz is a fitness base. Now, these are stories and narratives that we are looking as confirmation bias for the picks that we want. But Havertz is somebody I just want on my free hit draft. It's not somebody that
Yeah.
the
I'm pretty locked on my three Arsenal.
yeah.
I'm not too in doubt in that. I think that's one of the first things I can say. I think let's just talk about the locks again. I think the three Arsenal are a lock. Solanke is a lock. Salah is a lock.
Solanke is not a lock for me.
It's
Still
not.
open to if I go Rand for Robo, I might go Darwin for Solanke. Like that's the thought that I have in mind.
Just a second, just get the conversation. I need to let Frankie.
All right. So yeah. Also, one thing I wanted to mention while Zoff is just getting Frankie into the room. Uh, Eze and Mateta are locks for me, but there is a little bit of me that wants to punt on Olise because Olise is the kind of attacker that is going to get you 20, 25 points that nobody else is going to have, right? But I also like Munas because I feel like he's due a goal and he spends a lot of time in the center of the box. In the previous video, we had a few comments that were telling us that Munas's underlying numbers don't really look that good. With Munas, it isn't about underlying numbers. We mentioned it on the pod as well. He's spending a lot of time in the center of the box. Whenever Mitchell is holding the width, whenever Olise is holding the width, Munas is present in the center of the box. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a goal. But that's one player I wish I had is Olise because I'm expecting 65 minutes into two, and he's capable. He's really capable of two goals, one assist, explosive pick as a differential that nobody else has. But Munoz is also a good pick, and we are struggling to pick defenders.
Yeah. I think I'm on set on Munoz, but Mateta versus Olise is something I was debating this morning. Now, Mateta's numbers are interesting in terms of big chances. Over the last 6 game week, he's had, I think, close to six. Only Isak has had more. In
Yeah,
terms of eight, there's not as such short volume, but the quality of chances are obviously very good chances. There is possibility of some minute management with Edward, but I think that's going to happen only towards the tail end of games.
yeah,
And Olise's numbers also, like in terms of XA, he's played only some 16 games, but he's even ahead of Eze.
yeah. So the thing is, right, like when you're coming, there's taking the numbers away, like what is also in my head is Mateta is probably in the form of his life, and he's been playing really good football for the last month under glass. Olise is just coming back into fitness, so I worry about a little bit of rawness, not fully fit, etc. So these are the small margins that are sort of I'm
That's exactly
debating
what
in.
I am as well. I think it's more of a
Yeah,
fitness and minutes thing with Olise,
yeah,
a rhythm thing,
and
I think,
form.
and form. Right,
Mateta's in form. You can't take that away from him at the moment.
right.
Yeah.
What else should we talk about? Brereton Diaz.
Lock punt, man. I've been feeling really good about this punt, and it's the fun punt that I want to have, So that's something I'm not going to compromise on because we don't compromise on fun out here. So I think this is where I am. Is this is a good balance of having enough chalk picks in there, having the penalty takers in terms of the mistakes that I want to correct as a playing play style, and having a few punts that I'm feeling. I think that debatable spots are right now Robbo, maybe second Arsenal attacker, Darwin if I fancy a punt, and Olise. These are the players that I'm currently looking at the moment. Let's
Sure,
dive into your draft.
it's quite similar in the sense I'll just run you guys through it. I put Pickford in there. The reason being obviously primarily lack of better choices, and I do feel that ultimately with Pickford, the good thing is if he does get the clean sheet, it's always like an 8 or 9. There's
Yeah.
always some bonus thrown in there. I think so. He could get like he's a high ceiling goalkeeper, so in that sense I don't mind. I've got Van Dijk in there. Him and TA versus Robertson is one that's going to go down till really late. I think I need to speak to a few more Liverpool fans. You're going to speak to Josh from Distance Covered as well. Munoz
Yeah.
and Gabriel, I think, are pretty locked. Eze is a lock. Havertz, Saka, Salah are locks. I think Mateta and Solanke are locks. Now the Darwin versus Jota versus Luis Diaz is something else again. I think I need to like investigate a little bit further. But I think at least 8 out of 11 spots I'm pretty certain on.
Virgil is a lock in your draft. You're not
No.
going.
Very
No.
tempted by one of the fullbacks, but I think if I do punt, it probably will be Trent,
Yeah.
not Robbo.
You're a Trent boy. You've been feeling a little bit of Trent love in your bones. It's all week you've been talking about Trent. That's the punt you're inclined to go towards.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
might just do that. And because you have to keep in mind the sub offs at 60, 65 aren't necessarily the worst thing.
Yeah. It could
Sub
mean clean
60
sheets.
obviously is not what we want, but around 65, 70 is getting subbed off and it's nil-nil or like, so chance of preserving the clean sheet is also there.
Yeah.
I don't think these two teams are very weak. If I have to look into the XGC data from set pieces, I think they're pretty good at defending set pieces. I think from what I can remember, Fulham and
Fulham and
Everton.
Everton. Yeah. Yeah. They are pretty
Because you
good.
can't you expect a Daesh team always to be strong at defending set pieces anyway.
I remember from memory the Virgil has scored once against Everton in the
Yeah,
past. It
it's
was
a derby
a
game.
Yeah, it's a derby game. But generally, the Everton Liverpool games have been very tight. It's been 1 or 2 goals.
Yeah,
That's about it.
you see the Origi goals, the Mane late
Yeah,
goals. It's always been, especially at Goodison Park, they
yeah.
haven't really been goal fests.
Yeah, keeping that in mind, I like the Pickford pick because also Daesh conceded six to your lot, right? Now, a lot of people think that this trend continues, but when a team, and especially Sean Dyche's team, concedes 6 goals, the first thing that Sean Dyche is going to tell his troops is let's get back to the basics and let's get a clean sheet against Forest. Like knowing what we know of Sean Dyche from his Burnley days as well, defense first is going to be the mindset that they have for Forest.
Darwin is the one. It's not really my kind of pick, but I don't. I
Yeah,
have a feeling now that in terms of minutes, it seems like a safe pick now. Because again, Jota could get 2 starts, could get 1 start. In terms of getting 2 starts, I think it's between Darwin and Diaz. I feel more confident.
yeah. It's one of the two that will get 2 starts, I reckon as well. So yeah, fair shout is just even if he starts right at 60 minutes, like your expectation in terms of minutes just needs to be adjusted. That's about it. And I also, while we're talking this minutes adjustment, I don't think Saka and Havertz are safe from it either. They also have fatigue. It
I think
always seems
Saka
like
is a little bit more at risk. I think we've been hearing a lot of news about his injury, and I think even Odegaard is carrying something.
yeah. So that's the thing also, right? And Havertz hasn't had a rest. So, it is what it is, but we are going to any temptation at all to go with any single game weekers off?
Yeah, that's something we should talk about. I think Watkins potentially was one I was thinking about. He's got Bournemouth at home, but I think I will swerve that. There are decent options. You can go
In
against, and there's
attack.
no EO risk anymore attached with Watkins. But the corollary of that is obviously there's more gains now
Yeah,
to be
there's
made if you do
opportunity.
pick
Yeah,
Watkins. But then I think that's about it. Manchester United guys, I'm really not sold over there. You really
yeah,
don't know what's going to happen. I'm thinking I put Diaz in there as my first sub now. I'm thinking where I could accommodate him. Maybe like if I shift one of the Palace guys to a goalkeeper, or
yeah,
maybe like go a double defense like you said. That's probably the only thing. But Diaz numbers aren't that great. Just before coming on, I had a look. I think he's had three big chances in the last
yeah.
five matches. But like you said, pure eye test.
You're right, yes. If you're talking about underlying numbers and matchups, just like a statistical point of view, McBurney's numbers are pretty decent. Also seems like he could be the penalty taker
I
in
think
that
he
team.
is.
He is the penalty
I'm
taker.
pretty sure he is.
And Burnley and United are not the strongest teams on set pieces. And McBurney tends to get a lot of his goals as headers.
Hmm.
So, if you're talking about matchups and statistics, but Diaz is just a lot more flair and he's a lot more fun to own. That's all. And OOP playing center forward for Sheffield United, you want that little bit of sexiness on your free hit draft. That's about it.
I think
Where are
that's
you
the
at Nuri? Will you be tempted to start him if O'Neill gives him a clean bill of health and saying, yeah, he's back fully fit, no problems?
I don't know if he's going to be playing in the front three. He's probably going to be playing wing back. I think that's safe to assume now, with you have
Yeah.
Wang and all these other guys who are fit. So I don't think so. I think I generally like the prospects of Munoz a lot. Man, now if he does score, I think that's the only place where I could probably put him in because I will have one Liverpool defender, one Arsenal defender. If it anything, it would be at the expense of Munoz. And now having had him for so long and sort of targeted him for this period, if he scores, it'll be a world of pain not owning him.
Fair, fair.
That's what I am.
One question I want to ask is Everton is a team that we've not really spoken about too much, having two home games, one against Forest and one against a Liverpool team that do concede chances. I was looking at FPL review, and McNeil was very popular in the free hit conversation for Everton. Being tempted by anybody, Everton DCL would have been a part of the conversation, but there's still doubts about his
He's quite
fitness. So,
flaky. Yeah,
yeah,
like with games so close, you never really know if he's going to start both.
so I'm not tempted. If at all,
A Wolves
Brathwaite,
attacker is possibly a punt that you could consider. They have two home games, the likes of a Sarabia, even a Wang, or something is
yeah.
what you could look at outside of like the usual pool of players. Because even at Bournemouth, obviously none of their attackers, bar Solanke, are even an option. You won't even look at their defense with two away games.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, just some numbers to cite off. Solanke's had 11 returns in 15 away starts this season. So that's a pretty good strike rate. Aston Villa have conceded more than 2 goals on 5 occasions in their last 8 games. So just some numbers that are very pro Dom Solanke as a pick also. Just thought I'd cite that.
What about Cunha versus Solanke? Is that a debate at all?
It's close. I don't think it's far away. The thing is that Cunha's one fixture is Arsenal. Literally anybody, any other team, even if it was City, I'd be more confident of going Cunha because City do tend to leak chances. Arsenal are just tight. That's the thing.
So there's some comments from the manager also after the game that he said he left Cunha on for longer than he should have, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So again, fitness is a little bit of a
But
concern
I'm
over
not too
there.
worried. I have him at 140 plus comfortably, Cunha, in terms of expected minutes.
Yep. And we do talk
Maybe
about
somebody that could make his way in just towards the end. That's
because earlier part we did talk about like what do managers rest players for? What do they preserve fitness for? Somebody like Trent, you have to keep in mind that he does want to go for the Euros. If he
yeah.
picks up an injury now, that the Euro participation will be in doubt. So you can't just flog these guys to the ground.
And whatever the narrative might be outside, Liverpool are still in a title race. They want Trent to be fit for games towards the end of the season as well. They don't want to lose him. They don't want to make the same mistake as well. So that's something that's going to be. And
Yeah,
Klopp is somebody who is a sports science believer.
yeah.
So
Going back to the draft, I think that's pretty much the one spot I think I'm going to debate. I think I will stick Darwin in there.
yeah, man, it'll be a fun world, and I'll cheer for you because I want you to get into the top 10K where you own Darwin on free hit and I don't. But at least I'll have reason to cheer for you.
How the tables have turned.
Yeah, yeah. Still good, right? The Ran Darwin thing is a conversation in my head as well. And as has been trending, like we mentioned, we always reserve the right to have a late change in our team. Yeah.
Cool.
I think
Anything?
that's it.
I think that's it. We're close to half an hour for a Friday. That's pretty good.
All right, man. Thanks, Zoff, for taking the time out to do this. It was fun chatting with you, actually. Sort of made me think about the free hit draft a little more and cemented a few picks, made me think about a few things. So thanks for doing this,
My pleasure.
and we'll see you next week. Like Zoff mentioned, we have a pod coming out on Monday with Pras, where he's going to talk about his early wildcard draft as well. So see you then. Take care, guys. Make
Right.
sure you're liking and subscribe.
Make sure you like and subscribe because this is a recorded video. We need your help more so to get it out with the algorithm. Do hit that like button. Thanks again for joining us.